Heading into this offseason, it has been quite evident that the New York Rangers, of course, want to make some pretty big changes and kind of moves this offseason with this current roster. And, of course, they were going to more than likely have to get rid of some type of player like a Chris Kreider, for example, which they, of course, ended up doing to help clear some more cap space, as they did a pretty good job of that by moving away Kreider and getting off of his entire $6.5 million cap hit for this upcoming season, 2025-26, as well as the following season after that as well. But opening up that $6.5 mil was definitely kind of a need for this team if they wanted to go out there and add in a real big difference maker. And of course, now that move hasn't made there, by trading away Kreider and opening up that extra $6.5 million, and this team has, as of recording this video right now, about $14.922 million in current cap space available. And of course, they do have a couple pretty key RFAs there in guys like, an Adam Edstrom there, a Matt Rempe, but, on the pricier end there, guys like, of course, Keandre Miller and Will Cooley as well. So there are definitely a few players who are going to need to be re-signed, but if this team wanted to go out there and add in that kind of true, maybe top 4 caliber defenseman or a real good kind of forward, top 6 caliber guy on that side of things there, they were also, like I said, probably going to have to give up one of those kind of guys like a Kreider there to help open up more cap space, which, like I said, they did a great job of doing in that deal with Anaheim. And now, since they've opened up quite a bit of cap space, I am definitely hopeful they're going to go out there and find a true top 4 caliber defenseman, ideally a left-handed one, to really try and bolster this defense core. Because I think if you watch this team quite a bit last season there was definitely a big reason on kind of why this team didn't make playoffs last year. There's multiple, pretty big reasons there, but one pretty evident one was definitely the very poor and just at moments awful and terrible defensive play from this team. And no, it was not just, I would say, solely on the defense core there. Some of the coaching staff can definitely be blamed for that for sure. Of course, the Rangers ended up firing their former defensive coach there in Phil Housley. Of course, now Mike Sullivan is bringing in his new staff, but I think, the coaching staff's to blame there, the defense core's to blame, and also the forwards as well. They're a part of the defensive play as well. But I think the main issue was definitely just a big lack of kind of talent and overall, toughness and size on the back end there. And I think this team needs to go out there and add in ideally a fairly big, tough, reliable defensive defenseman there who is, of course, ideally a left-handed guy. And I think at the end of the day there, it's not even really a need for this team. It is kind of a must. If this team wants to really compete next season there and have an opportunity or even a chance at going on some type of a decent little playoff run there next season there, they have to go out there and add in a guy like maybe a Vladislav Gavrikov, who I really want to talk about in today's video, because I think he is literally the exact kind of defenseman this team could really benefit from adding in. And of course, there's many different types of defensemen that could benefit this team, but a guy like Gavrikov there, who I think is a solid veteran guy, a left-handed defenseman. He's got some decent size there. He may not be the toughest or most physical defenseman in the NHL, but he still is, fairly tough, fairly physical there. Definitely not a kind of, weakling out there. He's definitely pretty strong, of course. And I just think that kind of molded defenseman there, a veteran guy, a reliable defensive defenseman there, brings a bit of toughness and physicality, but nothing too insane, but, enough there to warrant an impact. And I just think that kind of defenseman could really be quite beneficial for this team. And I think, depending on what we do with Keandre Miller, that's obviously a pretty big question mark right now. And same thing with a guy like Carson Soucy, do both of them or do one of them go? That's kind of the big question there right now with Keandre and Soucy and this Rangers kind of decor in general, because the right side is pretty much solidified there. You've got Foxy, Schneider, and Borgen. I think that's a pretty great 1-2-3 punch there. You got that number one kind of high-end defenseman in Foxy, and you got two really solid kind of, capable second-pairing defensemen at moments there in guys like, Schneider and Borgen, who, of course, I'm hoping this upcoming season under Mike Sullivan and that new coaching staff, we'll see finally Braden Schneider take that big step in his game that I've definitely been hoping we could see him take for a few seasons now. But obviously, on the left side there, you got a guy like, Keandre Miller, of course, who is an RFA. You've got Soucy, who has one more year left with a $3.25 million cap hit. And then you have Urho Vaakanainen, who, recently at the end of kind of last season there, signed that 2-year extension worth $1.55 million per season. So a decent depth guy in Urho there, a 6/7 defenseman, I would say. Soucy definitely had a pretty rough kind of go with the Rangers there once he was acquired from the Vancouver Canucks. So does he get traded away? Maybe not there, but it might not be for, kind of plus value there. You might have to give up something to get off that contract. So that's kind of the tough part there after you gave up that third-round pick, of course, that you received in that Riley Smith trade, for Soucy at this past deadline there. So you'd definitely be losing out on that kind of, pick you obviously gave up for him, which isn't the best asset management, but it happens there. Just a tough kind of go there. And obviously, the Rangers team in general wasn't playing great hockey, but Soucy just came in and definitely did not help this team out at all. So unfortunate there. Things didn't work out, but basically what I'm saying is on the left side, there are some major question marks. On the right side, it's solidified there. You have your 1, 2, and 3 punch. But I think on the left side there, you're going to keep Urho around. Obviously, he's not going anywhere. You just signed him to an extension. And like I said, he's a number 6/7 guy there. If he's in your bottom pair, that's fine. But you don't want him being in your top 4, in my opinion. And I think with a guy like Soucy there, if you have the opportunity to trade him away, I would absolutely do it now. It kind of depends there because I would imagine that you're maybe not able to get off him for kind of nothing now. Maybe you have to go up a little bit to get off him. I don't exactly know as of this moment. Like I said a while ago, of course, I thought we were going to have to give up stuff to get off the Jacob Trouba contract. I was, of course, wrong there. We ended up getting back an asset, in a 4th-round pick and back in that end. So that was a pretty great deal, in my opinion, of course. But I just think if you're able to trade away guys like, Carson Soucy there and get off that contract, save $3.25 million for this season, and then also possibly trade away a guy like Keandre Miller for some pretty good value, well, now you're going to open up like $18.1 million or so in cap space, which can definitely go a long way. And, even after re-signing guys like Will Cooley or Edstrom or Matthew Robertson or Rempe, you're still, even after re-signing all of those guys, you're still going to have at least around like 10 plus something million dollars in cap space to spend. And that's more than enough to go out there and add in a guy like maybe a Vladislav Gavrikov and, a decent third line center or some guys in the back end as well. So there are definitely some options this team's going to have there. And if they can open up more cap space, I definitely think it's probably what's best for this team because they need to make some real big additions. They have a few guys to re-sign there, some key guys to re-sign like, an Edstrom, Rempe, and of course Cooley and potentially Keandre Miller as well. We'll see what happens with him. But at the end of the day there, if they can trade away guys like Keandre and Soucy to help save more money there, open up more cap space, to me, that very well could end up being kind of what's worth it. And I really do think adding in a guy like Vladislav Gavrikov is truly exact kind of what this team really desperately needs to bring in at some point this offseason. Anyways, that's going to do it for today's video. If you have enjoyed, definitely don't forget to click that like and subscribe button for daily New York Rangers content, as I do post every single day a video about the New York Rangers. Also, of course, definitely don't forget to comment down below your thoughts on today's video. Do you agree with my takes? Do you disagree on kind of thinking that maybe trading away guys like Carson Soucy if possible and, a guy like Keandre Miller could be what's best for this team there to also, help open up that kind of, cap space there to be able to go out there and make the necessary additions? Do you think this team is kind of in need of a guy like Vladislav Gavrikov as well? Because I do think he is a great defenseman for this team to potentially add in. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. As always, love hearing your thoughts and opinions, whether you agree or disagree with my takes there. Definitely comment down below. Hit that like and subscribe button for daily content. I'll catch you next one, and let's go Rangers.